everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the quarter pole, basically, of the season. I guess we're half a game off from the quarter pole, but 20 games into the season, I think most people would take a look at where the Winnipeg Jets are. I don't know, maybe some people would be shocked. I think most people would be pleased. But we're coming off a loss here. We got to talk about that. We got to dig into it. Here for the good, here for the bad. We'll see how this one turns out. The Winnipeg Jets have been, and by that I mean the show, by that I mean the attendance, because if we take a look back at some of the shows so far this season, I've said it before, I know some of you are fairly dainty. I know some of you have a little bit of a hard time managing your emotions after a loss and can't seem to come spend your time with Kenny and Renny after that happens. Don't be so precious. Come on, the good and the bad. We're going to get through this together. That's the way we do it. Come on in, pile in for the wins, pile in for the losses. To me, it's all a team that's on an upward trajectory. And yes, like a burgeoning stock like Apple at some point, or Microsoft or Tesla, although I know that one took a little bit of a hit. You know, you're mostly heading upwards in a direction. Every once in a while, you have a little bit of a drop like you had here. And that's how I would describe this game tonight against the Nashville Predators. You can't win them all. No team has ever gone 82-0. The Boston Bruins last season were the best regular season team we have ever seen in the history of the NHL. We all know how that turned out in the first round. It's not the biggest deal. I think the thing that is the big deal, and I think the theme that we've been sharing for the entire season, for the most part, is the idea that even that first little bit of the season when the Jets stumbled out of the games or out of the gates, they were losing games that it looked like they should win. But for the most part, they've flipped the script on that. Now they're winning games it looks like they should win. This may have been one of the first games in a long time that the Jets lost that it probably looked like maybe they should have lost. And when I say that, I'm talking about splitting the hairs here, right? Because you had a goaltender on one time, not that the Jets got goalied on this night, but you had a goaltender who was playing well for the Nashville Predators and UC Soros. You had Laurent Brossoit in net for the Jets, who let in definitely one that he's probably not that happy about in a game where you lose 3-2. Essentially, that's the difference on a night like tonight. So you can chalk it up to that. I don't take a look at this game and think that the Jets entirely threw it away. It wasn't one of these poor performances. Yes, they were down 3-0. Yes, they almost scored their way back into the game. Yes, we'll have to talk about it and, suggest the idea that I've said this in the past. That DNA of the Jets' ability to push and come back in games was birthed in the Paul Maurice era. It's a skill of theirs that they've carried over. It's an extremely useful skill, almost paid off here tonight. But I don't look at this as a game in which the Jets failed to show up. To me, this is a game in which the Jets just didn't quite seem to have their fastball. And what I mean by that is what we saw from them against the, Florida Panthers, which we're already talking. We thought the Winnipeg Jets came off their best game of the season last game against the Florida Panthers. And the game before that was a masterpiece from both sides against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Going down the stretch here, we've seen the Jets look what it looks like for them when they are absolutely on the top of their game. And this wasn't that, right? And I don't think that that's a big deal. I think, to be honest with you, when you get the emotions that were involved with Rick Bowness coming back last game, and the team response that you saw, where they basically come out with their best effort of the season, like we saw from them last game, it's not surprising that there's a little bit of a dip afterwards, right? So much emotions go into that. You build up to a plateau. Well, where is there to go from a plateau? The only place to go from being as high as you can get is down. And sometimes I think you fall a little bit faster than maybe you expect, or maybe you check, right? It's like rappelling off of a building and kind of losing the backhand on the rope and sliding down a little bit too fast for a bit. To me, the Winnipeg Jets, just from where they had been and where they'd been acclimatized to, you can't expect the Jets to operate at that level for 82 games a season, or even going forward for the next 62 games in a season, you had to expect a little bit of a dip at some point. It makes sense to me that dip comes after the emotions of a game where you get your head coach back, who has created a system that has made you a fearsome team. So there's a lot of appreciation that goes into that. And I just think tonight, while the Jets looked like themselves, and this is a good thing, it's good to look like yourselves and just not be completely and totally sharp. It's better than just looking like you've completely abandoned your game. And here, I'll give you a great example of that. So right now, the Winnipeg Jets end up dropping down to third place with that loss, because the Dallas Stars, who the Jets will be playing in their next game for second place in their division right now, they had the same amount of points as the Jets, but now the Jets have played an extra game, so they dropped below. Just like yesterday, the Jets would have jumped into first place in the division, even though they weren't playing, had the Colorado Avalanche lost to the Calgary Flames. That didn't happen, but that's where we find ourselves. But I've seen it talked about in the chat room. I've had conversations, you in the chat room, who are saying this. You're not the only ones. There's a lot of people who cover this sport for a living who think the same thing, but they take a look at the Colorado Avalanche and they think something's off about that team, and that a lot of people don't have faith in that team. It's funny to hear that, because everyone who's watching the Winnipeg Jets right now are looking at them and thinking, my God, this team is amazing, especially if you're a fan of the team. And I've had so many people messaging me saying, this is Stanley Cup caliber play. We need to keep playing like this. And yet there are the Colorado Avalanche neck and neck, and now 2 points up on the Winnipeg Jets. But the thing about it, and I can tell you what it is about the Colorado Avalanche that has people kind of wondering about them, is in the games where they slip up, right? Like put the banana peel on the ground and slip and have your ankles above your head and fall to the ground, just like Renny did after he fell off the roof there the other day. The Colorado Avalanche, from what I've seen from them this year, is when they fall apart, they fall completely apart. This wasn't the Winnipeg Jets doing that. This was the Winnipeg Jets just having a little bit less, jam on this night, maybe a little bit less energy, maybe a little bit less focus, but their game still put them in a position where a couple opportune goals that they were able to score, they were close to coming and jumping back into this game. And what I would suggest is the Rick Bonus system that we've seen so far, when it is operating at its peak, it's so tough to beat, right? And you take a look at what it's done to really good teams like the Florida Panthers, and you know what, don't need to look any further than the last two games the Winnipeg Jets played, also against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But even that system, when it's not played at full capacity like we saw tonight, I thought still gave them a chance. It took a rough goal led in by Brossoit to make it a 3-0 game. And other than that, we're talking about overtime in this game. And the thing about the Winnipeg Jets is they have enough skill and enough depth that all it takes is one or another player to get going, popping that puck in the back of the net, and it's easy for this team to score its way back into games. So again, the one thing I'll say about this is the stretch that the Jets have been going on. You take a look at this team. How long had there been a conversation that the first line was going? And how long had there been a conversation that the second line needed to get going? And how long has there been a conversation that the goaltenders aren't where they're supposed to be? Other than the third line, and the third line isn't always scoring. They've scored quite a bit this year, but they're not always. Think about that for a second. Like the fourth line there, your fourth line center had 1 point on the season, so they're not contributing a ton. And then with the first line asleep for a while, and the second line not really getting going, and the goaltending not really getting going, you think about that, that sounds like a team that should have lost a lot of games. The Winnipeg Jets are finding a way to win games, whether the first, second, third, fourth line, your goaltender or anything is going, because that's how good the system is. And when it's executed to the T, the Jets are really hard to hang with, and that's what we saw last game against the Florida Panthers. When it's executed not quite up to the standard that they've set for themselves, which I think is what we saw tonight, they're still right in that game against a Nashville team that I thought played pretty good tonight. So I take a look at this game, and I think there's reason to take heart. If every game has a lesson, and the lesson that I take away from this one is that even not at full capacity, the Winnipeg Jets in their system puts them in a position to win games. And I think that's what we saw here tonight. That's my take. That's what I saw. but we need to bring in the man who had eyes in the building in that game tonight, and that would be our main man, Kenny Wiebe. Here he comes, everybody. Kenny, big ups to Larry TSG here, who says, I'm just waiting to hear what Kenny had to say. He had
Are you sure that he's serious? Are you
serious? Had to
serious?
endure my take on the game in waiting for you, but he's going to have to wait a little longer for me to talk about just how good you look here tonight, Ken, because you do look like $1 million, one of us. I think someone described me as homeless Renny here earlier on tonight. Hey,
no.
I'll take it. I can take homeless Renny. But you, even with your camera not operating at full capacity right now, Ken, are looking like $1 million, and that's because you headed on down to Vittorio Rossi to see Frankie and the boys. You want to look like Kenny. You don't want to look like homeless.
There we
Renny.
go.
Choose to look like Kenny and head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, tell him Kenny and Renny sent you. Loudly proclaim that you're looking for Frankie and the boys, and they will take care of you and have you looking like Kenny by the end of your visit there. Ken, I know it's been a great trip. I know you've suffered through some pretty bad stops along the way in Tampa Bay and South Beach and then Nashville, places that are hard to endure, but you've made it through, and you're at the point you can tell us about what you saw here tonight. What'd you see?
Yeah, a tale of two games, Sean. That's, I think, the easiest way to put it. Jets were great out of the gate. Probably 12 minutes worth. The shots, I think, at one point were 10-3, almost all the high danger chances. It was all Winnipeg, and then the ice started to tilt. I didn't have a lot of people agreeing with me in the Moose room or even with Rick Bowness, but to me, Sean, it doesn't matter what level of hockey you play at. When you run into a goalie who starts to get hot, there's frustration that builds in a team's game, even when the team has you talked about the great system the Jets had. Jets got a little bit loose within the system, got a little bit frustrated, and kind of overhandled the puck a little bit, and, a couple of self-inflicted wounds, and next thing you know... Ooh, hang on a second here.
Something going on in the arena there.
Sorry, we got something coming out of the scoreboard here. Sorry about that.
Excellent.
Yeah. You just missed the beauty of the clock being raised to the roof with the sound effects as well.
Sounds glorious.
Indeed. The Jets, it's funny. Funny, that's not the right word. Cole Perfetti has such incredible perspective, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to him after this game. The beginning, 10 to 14 minutes, really good for the Jets. The end, 10 to 12 minutes, maybe 14 if you want to give it that much, all good. And then there's this bit in the middle where the Jets kind of, I wouldn't even say they played terribly. They just they kind of exhaled a little bit. And then, smart play, all-world player in Roman Josi makes a smart pass shot off the pad. Yakov Trenin bangs home a rebound with 18.9 to go. Then Lauren Brossoit lets in, quite frankly, a bad goal. That's a goal that can't go in. It's a wrist shot from the circle along the boards. That can't go in. I actually, in real time, thought it maybe banked off somebody on the way in, but Rick Bowness was having none of it. He said, just one of those goals. And it's unfortunate for Lauren Brossoit because outside of that bad goal, he played pretty well, and he allowed the Jets to stay in the game, and they made a big push in the third, but they couldn't get the equalizer past Saros. So, Sean, this is another classic Jets game. They had the second best goalie, but I think it would be a mistake to just suggest that it was only goaltending because the Jets kind of let up a little bit in some ways. I mean, they didn't have a lot of push after it was 2-0, and they certainly didn't have much when it was 3-0 until the third period when they got it. It's funny, Sean, we talk about making your own breaks. I mean, the Jets got a break. Morrissey's pass gets blocked by Ryan McDonough, and the puck lands on Josh's stick, and he pounces on it and scores. I mean, it's smart because Morrissey didn't overskate the puck, Sean. Most players, once a puck is intercepted, could have curled right behind the net and never stopping. Josh stops, finds the puck, bangs it home. And then Perfetti just absolute rocket for his goal on the power play. But, I mean, this isn't a aha moment. Hey, the Jets had their best, most complete game of the year on Friday. Oh, they didn't show up Sunday. Well, no, that's not the case. They weren't their best for 60 minutes, but there was a lot of good in that game. They were never out of it. The Jets didn't turn to snake charmer hockey after falling behind 3-0. That's a sign of growth in my eyes. Yeah. And for the most part, like, there's plenty of looks to get this game to 3-3, don't you think? I mean, I don't think that the Jets, they didn't wilt, they didn't turn over, they didn't open up, they didn't abandon their system. And, at the end of the day, they've won 5 of 6. I mean, it's a good road trip for them, 2-3. I don't think, outside of the Jets themselves, I don't think most people would have gone into this road trip and thought, oh, you know what, they're going to sweep this no problem. And I would also say this, Sean, and I know it's apples and oranges because the teams are in way different places in terms of where they are on the map, in terms of where the organizations are. But, Sean, I got the sense from the Predators today, they were feeling about that Jets loss, that 6-3 game, the same way the Jets were feeling about their loss to Dallas. Now, like I said, I'm not putting these teams in comparable situations. The Predators know they're battling for a wild card, but they're also trying to, ensure this is not a full rebuild, and they feel really good about their team. But, John, I talked with Ryan O'Reilly this morning. You know how I feel about this person. He's one of the best people to talk to in the NHL, one of the smartest guys, one of the most accessible guys, and one of the most fun guys to talk to in the NHL because he just loves to talk about hockey. And he said they hated the way that the game went. They got pushed around by the Jets in that game. Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele both had 4 points. Connor had a hat trick. And the Jets kind of imposed their will physically, especially with their third line. And, with Nashville having Ryan McDonough back and putting Luke Schenn into the game, they felt they weren't going to have their, defense get, pushed around, for lack of a better term. And he was right. I mean, they were ready to go. They played well. And in some ways, they imposed their style of game onto the Jets, which is hard to do based on how they were playing. And that's what Ryan said before the game. He goes, this is one of the best teams, hottest teams in the NHL. And he wasn't wrong. He was exactly right. But in a game like this, even though both teams came in on a heater, I felt that there was just a little bit more urgency to the Predators game when you compare to the Jets. And I'm not saying the Jets got, fat on a 5-game winning streak. Not at all. But I do think there was a little bit more hunger shown by the Predators just based on how the way that last game went. It didn't go well for Nashville, and they wanted to do something about it, and as it turns out, they did. So for me, this is not a concerning loss by the Jets. And like I said, I don't think that this is all on Laurent Brossoit by any stretch of the imagination, but this is why he needs starts. But it's a whole chicken and egg thing. This wasn't a David Riddick style of game, but Brossoit hasn't played 5 out of 20. It's okay. It's an okay number. And although some people they're natural, the people jumping on Brossoit on social media, like, come on, like, give me a break. Can he play better? Of course he can, but you need to play in order to play better. Of course he could have played better, and he'll need to play better, but the only way to play better is to be able to play. I don't think the Jets need to be running Connor Hellebuyck into the ground and all the people saying, oh, you got to play Hellebuyck versus Saros. Brossoit can't just play games against Chicago and whoever else in San Jose. That's not enough starts. If you got to get to 20 to 25, you need to play in meaningful games against good teams. And at the end of the day, the Nashville Predators are a 500 hockey team. You need to be able to trust your backup goalie against teams like Nashville. So, anyways, I don't want people to take the easy out, the easy narrative. But to me, it was a non-issue. Does he need to play better? Yes, but the Jets also need to play him on Saturday against Chicago. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, why not? Yeah, listen, you're not going to get anywhere without having. I guess we're just going to jump into this conversation now. I was hoping to save that one for later, but might as well get into it now. And we might as well say, like, if we're going to go in that, I think it's pretty easy in this game that Laurent Brossoit gets the Pristine Roofing wake-up call in that situation for that goal that he allows. It's again, it's not redirected off anyone. That to me, the overhead shot of that is particularly damning because where the puck is coming from, I was wondering if he was expecting a pass across and got caught pushing off the net and going in the wrong direction. But that's not what happens if you look at the overhead view. He's stationary. It just goes right off him. There's just a big hole in between his body and his arm. He's not tight against the post. It's and listen, I'm no goaltender, but my idea of good goaltending in that situation is entirely sealing off the post, having your shoulder up against the net, having your arm up against that, and then pushing off that post to get across the ice if you need to. So the first thing I thought was just maybe it was one of those goals, and you'll see this happen. It's actually, regular goalies, junior goaltenders, junior A goaltenders, beer league goaltenders would get caught on this all the time when a player gives a look like he's going to pass it across the ice and the eyes go that way and the goalie starts cheating and then all of a sudden the player just fires it right where he's cheating. Shouldn't really happen at that level, but it does happen from time to time, and it's a highly cerebral play that people think is just a terrible goal, and really it's actually just really, really smart hockey players misdirecting the goaltender, but that's not even what happened in this situation. I just think that it was bad positioning in this situation goes in. So for me, he for sure gets the Pristine Roofing wake-up call of the game, and you know what to do when you hear the Pristine Roofing wake-up call of the game, especially if you have issues any of those kind of things, eavesdrops, you know what to do. You got to give Pristine Roofing a call, and the best way to give them a call is to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289. You don't want to call North End Rick, call Pristine Roofing themselves at 1-204-237-7663. Give them the Pristine Roofing wake-up call and give it to Laurent Brossoit, because I don't know that there's anyone else who deserves it on this night. To me, this isn't a sign to stop going to Laurent Brossoit. To me, we've seen where Laurent Brossoit was last year. Again, Winnipeg Jets fans, if you're pouncing all over this guy, you're forgetting the idea that he helped eliminate your team from the playoffs last year and outdueled your goaltender, your savior in the playoffs last year. He's capable. He's capable of doing this. His game right now is not where he would want it to be, though, not where Jets fans would want it to be, not where the Jets would want it to be. So this becomes a situation where you don't shy away from that player and go away. It becomes a situation where you have to take a look at this as something that you want to fix, and you definitely don't shy away from it for this exact reason that I was talking about before, Ken. I'm not sure if you were on the show when I was saying this, but the Jets have been going and they've been winning games without their first line going, winning games without their second line going, winning games without getting a lot of goals from their fourth line, winning games when Connor Hellebuck wasn't at the top. The Jets are in every single game and should have the confidence that even if parts of their game aren't firing on all cylinders, just give it the time and the patience and work on it behind the scenes and in game to get it to where it needs to be. And that's how you get the first line waking up like they did, the second line waking up like they did, Connor Hellebuck coming alive like he has. They need to show the same investment in Laurent Brossoit. So if that means them going against Chicago, that's exactly what they should be doing. You got to get this guy his reps. You got to make him feel like he's part of the team. He went on a stupid run. What was it? Was it like 14 games at the end of the year or something stupid last year, Ken, that he played in, that where he garnered points in 14 straight games when he came off an injury? I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it was something like that. It was a stupid amount of games where he was just on an absolute roll. you don't do that by being a bad goaltender. Yes, they had a great team, but you do not. Think about when he was doing that. The Edmonton Oilers were pressing like crazy, and the Colorado Avalanche were pressing like crazy to take the number one seed in the conference. So Lauren Hellebuck did that in a pressure cooker that was far beyond what we're seeing at the beginning of the year. This year, he's shown he's capable. It's the Jets' job to get him back to that capability, not hide from what's happening on a night like tonight and try and bury that guy. We've seen where that goes at some point during the season. I will say this about Connor Hellebuck. I think the last couple of years, as they pushed him towards the end of the year, he goes to sleep for a period of time because I think he's tired. And that's what you're trying to avoid this year. You're trying to use Laurent Brossoit in a way that you avoid that from Connor Hellebuck, and you don't do that by stapling him to the bench after a night like tonight. You get him out as quick as you can to try and build back up his confidence and show him that he's an important part of the success of this team and will be going forward.
Exactly. That's why I play him on Saturday. If you're the Jets, you're not playing him against Carolina on Monday. Oh, people will say, oh, it's a non-conference game. Well, who cares about that? They all count.
Hold on. I just want to bring this up. Fall Fever says Vegas has a way better defensive structure. Yes, Vegas is a very good team and has a very good defensive structure. But right now, the Winnipeg Jets, the way they are operating, are one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. So to suggest that they are a way better defensive structure compared to how the Jets have been playing as of late, that is a stretch. That is.
I would say last year compared to this year is what maybe that I would think that might be what he's suggesting. Like when he went 7-0-3 last year down the stretch, he was playing in front of a. But I agree with you, right? This year the Jets are playing better. They're second best team in 5-on-5 this year.
That last game against Florida, who's been absolutely great offensively down the stretch, they took that team and made them look like they had no hope in that game. This is not a bad defensive team that they're behind right now. I think tonight. That's another example of it. Anyways, sorry.
Quick, just to wrap up, for T-Shoe, I mean, the reason why I said you play him, he has a ring because he got to play. To Sean's point, he was the number one guy down the stretch. He wasn't playing once every 5 games, which you need to just get him in a rhythm. Of course you want to eliminate bad goals, but I don't think he's been plagued by bad goals. There were times early in the year where he didn't look as comfortable, but I thought he settled in nicely after the rough goal. What do you want him to do? The seam pass on the backdoor tap in on the power play is not on Laurent Brossoit. That goal is not being stopped. It was a breakdown in the structure of the 5-on-4 play. So this is not a LB only situation for me. And they got to keep playing him. Like you said, we're in agreement here. Laurent Brossoit can be better, but he needs to play to be better. And you don't abandon the plan just to say, you don't park a guy for a month. Oh, you let in a bad goal. Well, you can't play anymore. Sort it out on your own. No, he needs to play 20 to 25 starts. If that happens, then Connor Hellebuck will not be out of gas when the playoffs start, and he will be fresher. So it goes hand in hand. And the Jets need Connor Hellebuck to play great against Dallas and then against Edmonton and then probably against Carolina, because Carolina, they're still a contender in the East, even though their season's been a little bit up and down. So anyways, it's enough about goalies. We've had a lot of goalie talk here.
Before we do shut it down, Jerry Brown says, I find that Brossoit sometimes loses his focus on where the puck is in the Jet zone. Maybe he has to play more. This is actually an extremely interesting comment, if you ask me, just because of the idea. Goalies are so tricky in that some are kind of built to be backups and some are built to be starters. And the conversation we keep having about Laurent Brossoit was when he was essentially treated like a starter and how well he played in that situation. I mean, to me, Jerry Brown brings up, we know that Laurent Brossoit came back and said he's not here to back up. He got the taste of winning a Stanley Cup ring, but because he was injured and came back, another goalie had taken the crease. And he said it's not enough for him to be one of the guys on the ice hoisting the cup and have played a role, won a series for your team against maybe the best goaltender in the NHL. He wants to be the goalie standing in between the pipes, raising his arm when the final siren goes. So he's made that clear, and there is no way he's been treated like that kind of goaltender since he's got here in Winnipeg. He is most definitely being treated like a backup. And I'll be honest, Ken, I think he's being treated in a backup more so in a way than I thought he would. Another way of saying that is I thought by bringing back Laurent Brossoit, there would be a plan to go lean a little less heavily on Hellebuck this season. That hasn't happened at all. To me, this is very much, they're very much treating Laurent Brossoit in a similar fashion as I saw them treating Eric Comrie or even David Riddick last year. And maybe that's the thing, again, back to Jerry Brown's point, that Brossoit is struggling with here is he is being treated undoubtedly like he is a backup goaltender. And maybe that's messed with his head and has him playing the way that he's played so far this year.
Yeah, and Sean, and not only that, since that time, what's happened? Well, the number one guy not only is getting all the starts, he signed a 7-year extension. So if you're Laurent Brossoit, you came here back to the Jets to be more than an insurance policy. He took a 1-year deal because he thought there was probably a chance that Connor might not even be here beyond this year.
And how many people thought that? Hey, raise your hands in the chat room. How many people thought the Jets picked up Laurent Brossoit for the idea that maybe Connor Hellebuck was going and it gave them more flexibility in deals so that they didn't have to get a goaltender back, and that Laurent Brossoit could have been taking the crease for the Winnipeg Jets? I'm like Ken, I raised my hand, but anyways, Ken, I interrupted you. Let's let the chat room do their thing.
No, and I mean, I just think that could be part of it too. You know, mentally you're going in thinking you're going to play a bunch. Now, this was never going to be Linus Ullmark, Jeremy Swayman territory where it's one or the other, but yeah, I mean, I think that he was maybe we were thinking 25 to 27, and he was probably thinking north of 30, right? So if all of a sudden you played 3 out of 16 or whatever it was, well, I mean, that I get it. He has been a backup. He's here to be the number 2 guy and push Hellebuck, and guess what? He's going to need to play well if he wants to get more starts. Yes, of course. But at the same time, this isn't just a dump on Brossoit kind of scenario and people saying, oh, the Jets need a backup. They have a capable backup. He can play a little bit better, but he's also needs to play more, and that's where we're at.
Hey, the chat room has spoken. Those of you on the podcast, I'm just playing emoji after emoji of people raising their hands. That's what people thought, that there was a very good chance Laurent Brossoit was going to end up being our goaltender. Great point. Now we'll move on from goaltending, but a really great point by Tishu. You know, a sentence that should not, all those words shouldn't come together in that order. A great comment by Tishu. But Tishu says, but he could have played better. Look at 37, the first handful of games. This is cutting right to the start of it. We can make all these conversations that we're having about Laurent Brossoit and talk about what he thought he was going to be, but Tishu nails it here. There was an opportunity at the beginning of the year where Connor Hellebuck wasn't playing his best, where if Laurent Brossoit would have shown a certain level of flash, he probably would have been given more games based on how he was playing. He didn't do it at that time. So he's got to own where he is right now and the backup status that he has, because in the times that he's been given the crease, he really, as in his time here with the Winnipeg Jets, has not shown to be a starter in this situation. Okay, we need to move on. Before we do, I want you to give Sweet Lou a shout out there, Ken.
Sure. For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're curious what the house in the corner is going for, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's L-O-U at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community. If you do need something in the realty market, contact Lou and let him know that Kenny and Renny sent you.
Well, and honestly, it would have paid off. It would have paid off for Laurent Brossoit if he would have shown up a little bit earlier in the season. And that brings me to the idea of the Cambrian Credit Union payoff loan. If you're looking for or to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. All right. I wanted to get into this idea here, Ken, of the Jets scoring first. It seems like it's a passing stat in a lot of the games. I know I've seen it on the TSN broadcast. I know I heard it when we were on our broadcast. I think going into the Tampa game, the Jets were 7-1-1 when scoring first. They scored in that game. They scored in the next one. So by my count, and let's not make it official, 9-1-1 the Jets are when scoring first. They didn't score first in this game here. I'll say this. I talked about the Nashville Predators as a team that the last time the Jets played them, they broke them. I said the same thing about the St. Louis Blues twice. I said the same thing about the Arizona Coyotes twice. Now, they did come back against the Arizona Coyotes, but I wonder about the idea of getting that lead and sustaining that lead that allows the Jets to break those teams, because I think a lot of times what that Jets system does when they're piling on teams and piling on teams and piling on teams, they force the other team out of their structure. And you'll see this happens. Other teams do this all the time. You know that your system is working well when the best players on the other team get the puck and try and stick handle the puck through the middle, stick handle it into 2 or 3 defenders, try and put a move on them, turn over the puck, and it just comes back the other way. That's a player that has lost faith at that moment in that game in their system. You know, coaches will be behind them saying, flip it in behind them, make them turn around, go skate after that puck, get it done the hard way. I wonder, Ken, tonight, if that's an example, because what I saw was a far more resilient Nashville Predators team. And I'll be honest, there was a lot of times in this game where the Jets were pushing, and all of a sudden I saw a really good pushback from the Nashville Predators, which I wasn't really expecting, which I don't think I saw last game. I do think that the whole idea, and I've talked about it on the show, of the Jets being a real good team in the football sense of they seem to really like to play the field position battle well. I thought there was a massive amount of pushback on the field position battle from the Nashville Predators. And I wonder for the Jets how much harder it is for them to win that battle when they're chasing the game, if you know what I mean, right? Because I think a lot of times what happens is the Jets score and then they break teams because they cheat, they turn over the puck. We've seen it. The Jets back check, turn it over, go up ice, and score. And now it's a 2-goal lead, and now it's a 3-goal lead, and now this game is over, right? But I wonder if tonight is a good example of what happens if the Jets either A, start a game slow, which we don't see a lot of. Let's make that absolutely clear. Or B, if they can't capitalize on the big opening that they had tonight in the first period and then find themselves down, once they're down a couple goals, if it's really hard for them to kind of play that style, because you can see the bang style of goals the Jets scored. It didn't come from that sustained pressure. Ken, if you're going to run the comments, you got to pull them off or move through them. Anyway, they didn't come off that sustained pressure. It was like, you know, opportunistic jump off the point. If you're Josh Morrissey and score that first goal, then all of a sudden player gets taken down. It's a penalty. Cole Perfetti puts it in the back of the net almost instantaneously. This wasn't your traditional scoring tonight by the Winnipeg Jets, and just, you know, you see the third line wear them down and get it to the front of the net and score the goal. It was a little bit more opportunistic. So I wonder if the Jets' style of play gets interrupted if they don't get that early lead, and it gets harder to play the kind of game they play. And it's why we see them so dominant when they score first and vulnerable when they don't.
Yeah, I mean, it was an even first period, even though the Jets gave up the last goal. So they just got deflated after the second one for me. I don't know that it was necessarily they didn't score first. So I mean, I know you're not saying they can't win. I just didn't think it was as much of a disruption. It was just more of a situation where, you know, they gave up 2 goals in basically less than 2.5 minutes, and it kind of put them a little bit off kilter, if you will. It wasn't off their game, and they didn't abandon it, but they just weren't as sharp, and we didn't see as many in the second period. For me, Sean, I just didn't see as many shifts where they got the cycle game going. You know, you saw it in the first. I thought there was tons of great third line shifts. You saw the top line, you know, Scheifele, Connor, and Iafallo creating in the first period. You saw Nikolai Ehlers making 2 ridiculously good passes. I still can't. I mean, maybe you got a better look on it on TV, Sean. Was Kyle Connor not expecting that pass from Ehlers? Because he completely whiffed on it, quite frankly, and he had an open net.
Yeah, no, I think.
Or was it just in a bad spot? Like, it
just didn't connect. I thought
Okay.
if we're thinking of the same one, I thought it was a little tight to the heel of his stick.
Okay, sure. Pass was a little bit behind him. And I would say, too, so Iafallo, even Sean, in the second period, it was after they gave up the early goal. No, it was before. Sorry, it was still 1-0. Iafallo creates a turnover, but his pass is not in Mark's wheelhouse, Scheifele. They had a great chance, I think, right before that second goal was scored, was it not?
Yeah.
I don't think it was after. I think it was before. And Iafallo it was a little too crispy, quite frankly, and he didn't put it in his wheelhouse. So I think that there was push after giving up that late goal, but then they give up a bad one, and then it took them a while to get themselves back going. But I think the fact that they were able to, of course, score effects down 3-0, all those things, but they didn't abandon the structure, and then they kind of got back to the kind of game that they play. And once it was 3-2, Sean, at least in the building, it seemed like the Jets. Nashville, quite frankly, was just hanging on for dear life for a little while there. So, I don't know. Obviously, teams that score first often win, according to the numbers, but I don't think it's as big a concern just yet. I just saw a really hungry team as the Jets' opponent today, and they played better for as much of the game as they needed to. And Yossi was great in the game, in on all 3 goals, and then Saros was just exceptional. And Sean, the Jets caught Saros at a bad time. He is a notoriously slow starter. He was poor out of the gate again, or not poor, but pedestrian. And pedestrian goaltending won't work with this team. The Predators are like the Jets. They need above average to elite goaltending at times.
The old Jets.
The old Jets, yeah, sorry. But that's like they're not going to... You're not scoring your way out of trouble, with all due respect to Kiefer Sherwood, Juuso Parssinen, and Luke Evangelista, all really good young players. But you're not scoring your way out of that. You need the goaltender to be the best player, and then for those guys to play hard and chip in when they can. So, anyways, lots to like for the Jets on the road trip. Didn't love the game, but I would say there were parts of that game, start and finish, they looked like the Jets, and they played well.
Hey, big question for you. The third goal of the game, I think that's the power play goal, correct?
Yeah.
Forsberg throws it to the side of the net. It's redirected in. I have not seen that pass executed against the Jets so far this year. One of the things the Jets do really well is when they play a team that kind of plays the umbrella offense, where you've got the one defenseman in the center, the other defenseman off to the side, and the forward in the other spot where you would typically see Mark Scheifele has been playing on the wall, or if you think about where Patrick Laine used to shoot from. And when that top defenseman moves it over to the other defenseman and then tries to pass it through the seam over to that guy for the one-timer, Tampa tried it quite a bit. They usually have a lot of success with it. The Jets, Mason Appleton, for the most part, really good at defending that. If you remember that game, the Tampa game, I believe that's the game. Appleton gets hit in the foot, and they execute that pass and get it off and score a goal. But it's only because Mason Appleton is injured and isn't able to get back. That's what the Jets have been really increasingly defending better and better and better against. So I ask you this question, Ken. Was that a breakdown by the Winnipeg Jets, or, and I think it's the latter, to be honest with you, did the Nashville Predators coaching staff find a lane in that Jets defensive structure on the penalty kill that they could exploit and pulled it off? I think that's what happened.
Well, I mean, I'm not disputing that theory, and they certainly would have done their homework for sure. Rick Bowness thought it was a clear breakdown by his own group when asked about it, I think. Okay. So I think based on what he'd said in the postgame when I was in there, so he didn't like it at all. But also you have to tip your cap. That was an exceptional pass, and Forsberg has been excellent this season. It's funny.
He was great in the last game against the Jets. We thought he could have had 5 goals in that game.
Well, and the thing is, Sean, he went into the game against the Jets with only 2 goals on the season, and now he has 11, including 2 against the Jets in that game where he was exceptional. And I know you saw it too. he had a ridiculous scoring chance that Laurent Brossoit had to stop early in the game, where the puck was super tight to his body. Reminded me of Jack Eichel. He got it off from in tight and just ripped it on over or at his shoulder. So Forsberg was great in the game. Also, it was just an exceptional pass. I think they found Gustav Nyquist found a little bit of a quiet zone there, and I think it was a combination. I'd have to look at it again, but to me it's a combination of the forward not getting out and taking away the lane, but also the forward investing in a smart move of getting, like, there was non-verbal communication there, and it wasn't that Nyquist was just standing there to be an easy target, but he snuck in and then was quick to bang. I mean, it took 6 seconds or whatever it did, so no, maybe that was the Jets. Either one. Both power play goals came very quickly. So, yeah, I think that could have been one of the things that showed up in the pre-scout. I'm not 100% certain, though. Rick Bowness thought it was a breakdown, but that also could have been a breakdown created by what was viewed in the pre-scout by the Predators.
Well, exactly. Every goal is a breakdown, right? Like
for sure.
No NHL coach is sending his team out and they're just entirely clueless on a situation like that. Like, I'm thinking that they went out purposely to try to create the breakdown that happened, which is essentially what teams are doing. When you move the puck, when you pass it around, you are trying to open up a lane. You only open up a lane if a guy's not where he's supposed to be. So you are creating the breakdown. Really good power plays are good at creating the breakdown. And to me, that just looked a little too practiced, Ken. It looked like a little bit too much like the Nashville Predators knew exactly where the puck was going and the Winnipeg Jets didn't know where the puck was going. So to me, I think it's that
fair
situation.
enough. Yeah,
okay.
Fair enough.
I wanted to bring up one of our starred comments here, see if I can find it. Oh, quickly, Sparky asked this question. Love it when we can help people out here. Sparky says, has the Jet schedule been easier over last year? Example, travel and back-to-back games. It was a conversation that was had in the media where Scott Arniel said he had sat down at the beginning of the year with Rick Bowness, and they had the conversation about what a good schedule it was this year to get extra practices in. So yes, this is probably one of the more favorable Winnipeg Jets schedules that we've seen in a long time. They are liking it.
I think it's only 7 back-to-backs, including the one that was at home. So last year I think they were 11 or 12. So that's a big difference.
Huge, absolutely huge. And then let's turn. Go.
On the flip side, they're not beating up just on bad teams. And we talked about it earlier that, yes, most of their losses are against teams that are ahead of them. This one goes into the same pile as the Calgary Flames, where teams below them in the standings. But, I mean, for the most part, the Jets have been full value, playing well or playing hard against good teams as well.
No doubt. Okay, I want to talk. We don't talk enough about Josh Morrissey on this show, just like a lot of people. It'll be interesting when Ville Heinola gets back, and we can start up our Say Something Nice About Ville Heinola segment, which a lot of people are going to be excited about. We've said this before. We don't talk enough about Josh Morrissey because Josh Morrissey is just so consistently good all the time. It's hard to kind of point it out over and over and over again. Phil says here, if that goal by JMO happens first period, it's a different game. 14 shots on goal to 4. When that first goal happened, our boys were playing dominant till then. I agree with this. I agree with the idea that the Jets scoring first entirely changes that game. I think I'm more interested in just exploring the idea of what happens when the Jets don't score first and why maybe that changes their fortunes. But also, Renny Laverne says here, I thought Morrissey almost willed his team back. This is a great comment. I agree with this 100% there. You saw him skating the line tonight. You saw him creating opportunities. Josh Morrissey is a cheat code on the back end when it comes to trying to get your team back into the game, because he's already activating throughout the game, just the regular way that he plays. But he does that on steroids when the Jets are trailing, and is just so dangerous when he jumps up into the play the way that he does. And I just thought, Ken, here's your opportunity to talk a little bit more about Josh Morrissey on a night where he doesn't get them over the top. It looks like he almost grabbed the Jets by the scruff of the neck and threw them over the fence and into a winning land. If that's a terrible analogy for me to pull off there, but it doesn't change the fact Josh Morrissey has been playing absolutely phenomenal tonight. Another example of just how dangerous he is and what a driver he can be for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I mean, exceptional. 29 shifts for 28-19 of ice time, 5 shots on goal, 7 shot attempts, 1 takeaway, 3 blocked shots. Just another game where he's here, he's there, he's everywhere, he's omnipresent, as Paul Edmonds likes to say. It was an impressive showing by Josh, in typical Josh fashion. In light of all those things, he was, not feeling a lot of joy in the post-game interviews, but still able to point out, they feel good about where the team is at. This is an important part. It's an important marker. We talk about U.S. Thanksgiving. Now we talk about, now we're talking about the 20-game mark. It's the quarter point. Soon there will be the midway point, and there's going to be All-Star game. Then there's going to be trade deadline, and then there's going to be stretch run. So Josh has been playing great out of the start in the year. I don't think it's an accident. In a game where Roman Josi really shines, has 3 points, Josh wants to be noticeable. In a game where Victor Hedman shines and says, hey, this is not a 2-horse race for the Norris Trophy, with all due respect to Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar, there's other guys around the league that are saying, hey, don't forget about me over here. And I think Josh is one of those guys. He's not going to say it publicly, but he is playing at an exceptional level, and he is a true driver, and he's been playing very well, and it was a great, really solid game for him, I thought, for sure. Yeah, I mean, he was the Jets' best player today, for my money.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's transition. I want to talk about Pionk quickly because the chat's talking about Pionk, and we got to follow where the action is. Dom Zappia says Pionk has been solid all year. Tracy Okranik says Pionk was a pest tonight, and I liked it. That's one of the parts about Pionk's game. I take a look at him, and I think, man, you played against guys like that in the past, and man, did they piss you off to play against. Some of the stuff that he does, like, they're not late hits, but he does that thing where he hits you when you don't expect to be hit, and that's an art, right? Because usually people have a clock, right? You pass the puck, 1, 2, okay, you don't have to worry about anything. If it comes, it's a cheap shot, it's a late hit, whatever. Pionk does that thing where it makes it look like it's almost like his eyes are looking like he's going to play the puck or watching where the puck went, where you passed it. And then all of a sudden he just does a quick button hook into you and pops you one. And it's just, he's able to catch you time and time again. You heard it on the broadcast. You heard one of the players swearing at him. Ken, you wouldn't have heard it, but it got caught on the mics. Just how pissed off guys on the ice were with him. And I thought that tonight was another example of that. It sure is interesting, a guy his size to be able to do that. Like I said, trying to give an explanation of how he does it, but still to be that size and to kind of get away with it the way he does, because I don't remember him getting roughed up very, very often, which is also peak pest. The peak job of a pest is, if you never get your comeuppance, it drives people that much more crazy. Pionk is a guy who quite often pisses off and gets under the skin of the other team, and they never, ever get their comeuppance against him.
Yeah, I thought he was great today. Obviously, Kiefer Sherwood was the guy he was involved with earlier, drawing that penalty. Could have been evened up, but Sherwood just... It's almost, Sean, we've been involved in those situations. The guy retaliating almost always gets called, so you shouldn't be surprised when that happens. I loved his hit on Trennan, also along the board. I think that's the one you're referring to. It was about a half beat too late, and then he kind of rocked him and knocked him down, and then Trennan came over like he wanted to fight him, and Brendan Dillon said, no, if you'd like to go, you go with me. You're not going with him. So
but there you go.
No, exactly.
And that's a good on Brendan
for sure.
To understand the pestful nature of him, because again, when you don't get your comeuppance, and so it's the other one you're talking about. Neil Pionk takes a couple of really good shots. I can't remember which player it was in front of the net. Ken, you just mentioned him.
Oh, Yakov Trennan. No?
Yeah, Trennan.
Sherwood. Kiefer Sherwood. Sorry. It was Sherwood when he drew the penalty.
Gets a whole bunch of shots in on him, right? And they're deep. They're those deep behind the back ones, where you really get that stick in there and it pisses you off and it's mean and it's all these things. And so Guy turns around and is like, you want to do this? Let's square up, and gives a couple pops. And Neil Pionk reacts like he's like, what's going on here? And drops his hands by his side and takes a couple pops to the face with this look of like, I don't know what this guy's problem is, ref, but you should probably take him out of here for 2 minutes. And that is infuriating as a hockey player, to have someone hurt you and turn around and be like, you want to do this? Let's do this. And then they walk. Not only do they hurt you, you don't get back at them because you pop them a couple times, but you don't hurt them as bad as they hurt you. And now you're in the box for being the lesser of the two evils. It's artistry. He's pulling it off. I thought it was great here tonight. Ken, we got to move on here. I want you to give me your Johnston Group got you covered play of the game, my friend.
Oh man, that's a good one. Sorry. I would say that actually I'm going to give it to Morrissey. I think we've just been talking about him, and for me, I just think that he's not underrated, but I think, like you said, he doesn't get talked about enough because he's so good. So for me, I think.
Sorry, I got it.
I'm going to go with Josh Morrissey for the overall performance in the game here. So. For folks who are wondering, the sounds in the background, WWE Raw will be here tomorrow night after having their big show in Chicago. So there's been lots of banging around, putting the floor down here. So, anyways, got you covered. Cumulative effort for Josh Morrissey today. That's my choice.
I'll be honest, I thought it was Waiters and T. Will getting ready for the dismember party and taking some pops in the background there. That's good stuff. Hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan's the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. All right, let's move on quickly and head to the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Oh, I think there were many by UC Saros. I actually think that the save on Cole Perfetti in the first period is the save of the game that I saw. Nikolai Ehlers with a great backhand pass, a cross ice sauce. Perfetti gets it, toe drags, but not toe drag to try to walk, but toe drag to create a shooting lane, and he gets a low snapper away that Saros has to kick out the right pad. There were numerous chances. I think Vladislav Nemestikov had a really good chance late as well, but for me it was a save on Perfetti. Yeah, there you go. That was also a really good scoring chance there. Iafallo, I think, got robbed at one point, but I thought that the save on Perfetti was a bit of a tone setter at a time where the Jets quite easily could have been up 2-0, and they just instead got a little bit frustrated by how well Saros kind of got into the groove, if you will.
Yeah, I'm all over the idea of what the chat room is pointing to in this direction. Pat Rathwell says, had to listen on the radio tonight, so my keg save of the game, hashtag the keg save of the game, was Saros off Vladdy with 2 minutes left. Linda Trudeau says the same thing, hashtag keg save of the game with Saros on Nemesnikov. I know what you're saying, Ken, and I buy into the idea of hey, listen, you get to play a certain way if you're the National Predators, if you know UC Saros is going to have a certain kind of game. We know that with the Winnipeg Jets, some of those nights where it starts early and Connor Hellebuck does what he does, you know what kind of night it's going to be. And the Jets have talked time and time again about the confidence that they can build from that. You've got a great idea in that, Ken. I'm just going to hop in because I thought this was the one that kept it a 3-3 game. So I'm with Linda Trudeau, who says keg save of the game with Saros on Nemesnikov. That's my keg save of the game. You heard Kenny's keg save of the game. We want to hear your keg save of the game. If you do so, you automatically enter yourself to win a $50 gift certificate to be used at any of the 3 fine locations of the keg in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. The winner of this show's keg save of the game, that would be Lauren Findlay, who I believe, Ken, is on a little bit of a roll. I don't think he won last year, but he's one of those guys who made it to every single Kenny and Renny party and was at the year ender. Lauren Findlay won the Lamplighter, the 16 pack earlier on this year because he got the one that wasn't claimed, and now he's won the keg save of the game. So congratulations, Lauren Findlay. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name and your email, and I will send you a gift certificate, $50 gift certificate to be used at the Keg, any of their 3 fine locations, each location finer than the last. Ken, finally, your Trans-Canada Brewing Company lamplighter of the night.
Yeah, for me, it's the Perfetti goal, just because he continues to shine. It's really that simple for me. Great pass by Scheifele to find him in the high slot, and just an absolute rocket. I think it touched a little bit of iron on the way around the horn, but just a great shot for Perfetti. And he's just playing so well. It's an impressive thing to see. And it was an important goal in the game too. I mean, Josh Morrissey's goal got the Jets going, and I could make a case for that one being of a similar magnitude. But I just thought that because it allowed the Jets to push one step closer, I would say that's why I'm choosing it as my lamplighter here for this affair.
I agree, Ken, and just the idea of it and why I think that it is it's just such those shots that are like right off the post and then rattle around the net like that. Like, you rarely see shots like that in real life, and it makes you forget Cole Perfetti. He's not the biggest guy in the world, which is what a lot of people will say, and he gets by with his hockey smarts and stuff like that. But these guys have shots the likes of which you wouldn't believe, and no one is typically shouting out Cole Perfetti for his shot, but he's showing time and time again, if you give him a little bit of time, a little bit of space to shoot that puck, he can pick a corner and blast it past the goaltender. That was another great example of it, and it really turned that game into a nail biter, not just for the Nashville Predators, but for their fans. It made it an entertaining game going down the stretch. Great choice for Trans-Canada Brewing Company lamplighter of the game. And hey, you should be sharing with us your lamplighter of the game, your favorite goal of the game. Why? Well, if you do so, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends from Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your very own 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company. You can join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where we will be having our Kenny and Renny December to Remember holiday / Christmas party December to Dismember party for some of the wrestling fans who are getting pretty keyed up here. I love to see it, Ken. Hey, just so you guys know, you dainty wrestling types out there, the tables at TCB, they're not the kind of tables you can throw people through. You try and go through that, and you're going to meet a nice stud on the bottom, just like Renny did falling off his roof. But hey, you want to show up there, tickets right there on the screen. Kenny's got it written down there. Otherwise, just go and search Google Kenny and Renny Eventbrite December 10th. It will take you right there. You can go buy tickets. Come on down there. If you want to see the video of Renny falling off the roof, that's going to be figuring prominently in that party, I suppose. Ken, also, we're both bringing our receipts there that night. You're going to have a live airing of Kenny and Renny. It's going to be great. We want to spend time with you there. So buy up the tickets. Come on down there. And even you, Darth Maul, even you, it's Darth Maul here, I think. It's Positive Maul. I'll say this about Positive Maul. I was joking before because he was asking about tickets, and I was kind of giving him a hard time. You people here all saw it. If you're listening on the podcast, you wouldn't have saw it. But giving Positive Maul a hard time because Positive Maul wears the mask and he doesn't want to take it off. And so for him to come to the party, he'd have to go incognito. We wouldn't know who he was there. Or maybe Positive Maul thinks that Kenny and Renny are starting to put it together and we could eliminate, process of elimination. Like, what's that game called where you flip the faces over? Do I have a mustache? Do I have red hair? All that kind of stuff. We'll find you, Positive Maul. So be careful if you come in there. We could track you down and know exactly who you are. Anyways, TCB winner from last time. This is a Lamplighter winner. I know this person has won it before. I can't remember whether they threw it back into the pot or not, but SK, who I believe lives in Calgary. SK, you have won the Lamplighter Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. So you know what to do. Direct message me. Let me know what you would like to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Leave me your full name. I think it's Stuart Kapersky, I believe it is, or Kaspersky.
It is, yep.
Leave me your full name. Leave me your email, and we will figure out what to do. It's yours if you want it, but if not, we can figure out something else to do, SK. So, excellent. Thanks for joining in. That's it for us, Ken. We should get rolling here. It's back to real life and back to the Jets in Winnipeg. You got something to say, Ken?
Yeah, just a quick one. Some folks were asking about Gabriel Velarde. Velarde, I'm not 100% sure. I would say probable, but I would say possible for Tuesday against the Dallas Stars. Moving around pretty well. I do think that there is a decent chance that he plays. I thought Rick didn't really backtrack, but he wasn't quite as assertive as he was the other day when he suggested he was an option for Sunday here this game. But I would expect him to play, and it'll be interesting to see where he fits in. I mean, I asked him about that this morning. He said it wouldn't be on the top line based on the fact he wasn't going to be giving him that many minutes. But I do think it'll give the Jets a big boost. He's fired up and ready to roll, and I think we're going to see him. Certainly we'll see him on Thursday, but I do expect we'll see him against the Dallas Stars, and I think that'll give the Jets a boost as well.
I just had two mind-blowing moments here. You're going to have to tune into the YouTube version of the show.
Oh, I saw. Yeah. We both know them. We both know them. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Positive Mall says that we know who he is, and I can't remember what else blew my mind because it blew my mind. My mind isn't functioning properly anymore. So let's get out of this show before it exposes just how much my mind is blown. And let me say this before we do go: if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnson Group, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, The Keg, and TransCanada Brewing Company. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to the chat room. Hey, this was one of those shows that really was directed by the audience because so many good comments were coming in there. You keep the comments coming, you're going to direct the show. It's less work for me to do, and we like handling what is thrown at us in the chat room. So thank you to all you. Ken, great job. Safe travels on the way home.
Hey.
If you're coming home, I don't know if you've fallen in love with the lifestyle that you've developed over the last 3 shows there, 3 games.
Yeah, I heard you carving me on WST about golfing. No golf on this trip, happy to report, but I will be at the Monday Nighter tomorrow at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Really fired up. Haven't been back since COVID. Going to be tremendous.
Enjoy.
Thanks,
Enjoy.
buddy.
Excellent stuff. Okay, bye everybody. It was great having you. We will see you. Huge game coming up on Tuesday as the Jets playing for second place in the division, maybe first, depending on what Colorado does. But a huge game against the Dallas Stars. Retribution against a team that I think was the last really, really big measuring stick game that the Jets did not pass. They were not tall enough to ride that ride at that time. We'll see if they get on the roller coaster after this one. Talk to you after that, everybody. Bye-bye.